It was a bright Saturday afternoon when I arrived at my daughter Melissa's home. The sky was clear, the driveway packed with cars, and pastel decorations fluttered gently in the breeze. Balloons in soft pink and yellow lined the walkway, and a giant sign at the front door read, "Welcome, baby girl." It was Melissa's baby shower, her first child, and I was genuinely happy for her. But as I stepped inside, something felt off. Melissa greeted me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Hi, Mom," she said, leaning in for a hug. But it was quick. Awkward. Her arms barely touched my shoulders. I looked at her belly, round and glowing with the life growing inside. But the warmth I expected to feel in that moment wasn't there. Instead, a strange coldness settled over me. Alex, her husband, stood nearby, laughing with a group of his friends. He didn't turn to look at me, didn't say hello. I chalked it up to party stress. Maybe they were overwhelmed. The living room was packed with guests, mostly Melissa's friends, some coworkers, and a few distant relatives. I looked around for familiar faces, but I didn't see many. The decorations were elegant, the cake was enormous, and the smell of baked treats filled the air. But despite the cheerful setup, something just didn't feel right. As I made my way to the kitchen to place down the gift bag I brought, a handmade quilt, some newborn clothes, and a small photo album, I overheard someone whispering near the back hallway. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I heard my name. Just for a second. She doesn't even know she's walking straight into it. Then a soft laugh. I froze. Were they talking about me? I peeked toward the voices, but the two women walked away before I could get a look at their faces. I shook my head and tried to shake the feeling off. Maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe I misheard. But it stayed with me. Later, when we all gathered around for games, I noticed Melissa kept glancing at her phone. Alex kept stepping out of the room to take calls. A few guests kept looking my way and whispering. I smiled through it all, trying to stay cheerful, but inside, a knot was forming in my stomach. Then something even stranger happened. Melissa stood in front of everyone to give a short speech. She thanked everyone for coming, expressed her excitement for becoming a mother, and mentioned how lucky she was to have supportive people around her. Then she looked directly at me and said, "And of course, thank you to my mom, who's always been there, even when it wasn't easy." There was a strange tone in her voice. The room gave a polite round of applause, but her words didn't feel like gratitude. It felt like a warning, or a veiled insult. I couldn't quite tell. I felt the room's energy shift. Was I imagining it? Was this just my anxiety acting up? That's when I felt a small tug at my hand. I turned and looked down to see Liam, my 10-year-old grandson, Melissa's son from her first marriage. He was wearing a little button-up shirt and looked like he'd been crying earlier, though he smiled when he saw me. "Hi, Grandma," he whispered. I bent down and hugged him. "Hey, sweetheart. You doing okay?" He nodded quickly, then leaned in close and said in a shaky voice, "Grandma, we need to hide." I blinked. "What? We need to hide," he repeated, his voice low but urgent. "Right now. Please." I looked around. The guests were chatting and sipping juice. Melissa was laughing with a friend. No one seemed to notice us. I bent down again. "Sweetheart, why would we need to hide?" Liam looked up at me, and I saw genuine fear in his eyes. "Please, just come with me. I'll explain. But not here. Please trust me." I hesitated. Liam wasn't the type to act out. He was quiet, polite, and very mature for his age. And that look in his eyes, it wasn't mischief. It was fear. Real fear. I could have ignored it. I could have laughed it off and said, "Not now, honey, Grandma's busy." But something in my gut told me to listen. Something about the entire day had felt off. "All right," I whispered, glancing over my shoulder to make sure no one was watching. "Lead the way." Liam gently took my hand and pulled me past the kitchen, down the hallway where the bathroom and coat closet were. We passed the guest bedroom and finally stopped at the narrow door under the staircase. He opened it. It was a small storage space full of coats, old boxes, and a vacuum cleaner. It smelled like dust and cardboard. There was barely enough space for two people. But Liam squeezed in and pulled me in behind him. "Close the door," he whispered. I did. We crouched down on the floor in the dark. My knees ached and my heart pounded. "Liam," I whispered, "you need to tell me what's going on. You're scaring me." He nodded, took a shaky breath, and said, "I heard them last night. Mommy and Alex. They said something bad is going to happen to you. They were talking about a plan. About making you disappear." I stared at him. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "They said you have money. and that if you're not around, it would be easier to get it. Mommy said you're stubborn and always asking questions. Alex said they need to act before the baby comes. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. Could Melissa really be saying these things? My own daughter? My hands trembled in my lap. I was stunned, frozen in the dark with this child who just wanted to protect me. I didn't know what to do, Liam continued, now tearing up. I didn't know if I should tell someone. But then you came today and I got scared. I didn't want them to hurt you. I pulled him close, hugging him tight. It's okay, I whispered. You did the right thing. I'm glad you told me. We sat there for what felt like forever. I could hear the muffled sounds of the party outside, the clinking of glasses, bursts of laughter, music playing. But all I could think about was Melissa, my daughter, the baby I raised, fed, bathed, and rocked to sleep, planning something cruel against me. Was it true? Could she really be capable of this? I wanted to believe Liam was just scared, that maybe he misunderstood. But deep down, I knew he wasn't lying. And suddenly, so many little things began to make sense. The way Melissa had recently asked me to update my will. How she casually brought up my life insurance policy a few weeks ago. How Alex offered to help manage my online banking because technology's hard when you're older. It all connected. And now I was hiding in a closet with my grandson, realizing my own child might want me gone. We stayed inside that tiny dark closet under the stairs, me and Liam, our breaths quiet, our bodies still. My knees ached from the awkward position, and my heart hadn't stopped pounding since he told me what he overheard. I wrapped my arm protectively around him, feeling the urgency in his tiny frame. He was still trembling. I wanted to believe it wasn't true. That maybe Liam misunderstood something, or maybe Melissa and Alex were talking about something completely different. But deep in my gut, I knew something was wrong. There were too many little signs I had ignored for too long. Then we heard footsteps. 2 sets. Slow and steady. They stopped right outside the hallway closet. Liam looked at me with wide eyes. I put a finger to my lips and whispered, "Don't move." We both held our breath. The voices started, muffled but clear enough through the thin wooden door. Melissa's voice. She's been acting too alert lately. Asking too many questions. Alex's voice. So what? She's old. She won't remember anything if it happens quietly. Melissa, you don't know her like I do. She writes things down. She has backup copies. If we don't move fast, she'll catch on. Alex, she already signed the draft. You said she wouldn't notice. Melissa, annoyed. That wasn't the final one. I had to swap pages because she started reading too carefully. I stared blankly at the closet door. What draft? What were they talking about? Alex, impatient now. So what's the plan? We drag this forever? I already moved half the funds. The rest is tied to her signature. Melissa in a lower voice. She's old. No one will question it if she falls down the stairs or forgets to turn off the stove. My stomach twisted. They weren't just talking about stealing money. They were talking about ending my life. My daughter. My own blood. Liam gripped my hand tightly. Melissa continued, her voice flat. We wait till the party ends. Everyone will assume it was an accident. I even turned the camera off near the back door. Alex chuckled. Smart. You really are your mother's daughter. No, she said coldly. I'm smarter than her. I felt like I was going to be sick. My pulse thudded in my ears. My mouth was dry. I could barely breathe. This wasn't just about money or betrayal. This was about survival. They planned to make my death look like an accident. And nobody would suspect a thing. Liam began to silently cry. I pulled him closer and kissed the top of his head, whispering, It's okay, baby. You did the right thing. I'm here now. He nodded, sniffling softly into my blouse. After a moment, the footsteps faded down the hallway. We waited a few extra minutes just to be sure. Then I slowly opened the door a crack and peeked out. The hallway was empty. The guests' laughter had returned in the distance. The party was still going on. Music played again, muffling any tension with forced cheer. I had to get out of there, but carefully. I couldn't run out screaming. If they saw panic on my face, they'd know I overheard everything. And if they knew, I might not make it to the front door. I pulled out my phone to text my son, David, Liam's biological father and my oldest child from my first marriage. But then I remembered. Melissa had taken my phone earlier that morning, saying, Let me update your apps. It'll just take a minute. Had she installed something? I couldn't risk it. I didn't know what they might be tracking. Calls? GPS? I quietly slipped my phone into Liam's pocket and whispered, If anything happens, run to the neighbor's house. Mr. Hendricks. Tell him to call David. Okay. He nodded bravely. We crept out of the closet and made our way toward the kitchen, where the guests were distracted by dessert. I took a breath, put on the calmest face I could, and smiled. Oh no, I said loudly. Liam isn't feeling well. I think I'll take him home to rest. Melissa turned around, her face tight. What? But we're just about to do presents. I know, I said sweetly. But he's pale, and I don't want to risk him getting sick right before school starts. She narrowed her eyes, glancing between us. Alex stood silently behind her. Liam clung to my side. I'll be fine, I added. You don't need to walk us out. I could feel the tension. Melissa forced a smile. All right, Mom. We'll save you some cake. I turned, walking slowly toward the door, every muscle in my body tensed. My legs felt like jelly. My back prickled, waiting for the sound of footsteps rushing toward me, or worse. But nothing happened. I opened the door, stepped outside with Liam, and walked to my car. Once the door closed behind us, we didn't speak. I clicked the lock button twice. Then I started the engine, my hands shaking. We drove in silence for 3 blocks. Then I pulled into a parking lot and finally exhaled. Liam looked at me. Are we safe now? I nodded. Yes. For now. But we weren't really safe. We were just beginning. When we reached my house, I went straight to my safe and pulled out all my legal files. My will, my power of attorney documents, my account details. Everything looked intact. Nothing looked obviously tampered with. But that didn't mean they hadn't made copies. I had a sinking feeling Melissa had forged something. The way she casually mentioned the draft during the closet conversation. What if she had a fake will already submitted? What if Alex was already using my credentials to access my savings? I immediately called my lawyer, Mr. Farnsworth, a family friend I had trusted for over 20 years. He answered on the second ring. Gloria? Everything all right. I tried to keep my voice steady. I need to see you. Tonight. It's urgent. That evening, Liam stayed with my neighbor while I drove to Mr. Farnsworth's office. We went through everything. I told him what Liam had overheard. I told him what I'd heard too. He took notes. He checked the last activity on my will. To my horror, he discovered a change had been requested. An email sent from a fake address that looked like mine, and a digital signature that resembled my own. She's been preparing this for weeks, I whispered. He looked at me seriously. Do you want to involve the police now? I paused. Not yet. I needed more evidence. Something concrete. Something that wouldn't look like a mother accusing her daughter out of paranoia. So we made a plan. I gave Mr. Farnsworth power to freeze all my assets temporarily. I logged out of every account and changed passwords. I disabled my phone and bought a new one using a different name. I had security cameras installed around my house. And most importantly, I asked him to help me document everything. Properly. Quietly. Melissa didn't know it yet, but she had just pushed me into a corner. And I wasn't going down without a fight. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The silence in the house felt louder than ever. I couldn't stop replaying her words. She writes things down. She has backups. I did. And that was going to save me. But what broke my heart the most wasn't the betrayal. It was thinking about the little girl I raised. The one who used to hold my hand and say she wanted to be just like me. What had turned her into this? And how far would she go to finish what she started? The next morning felt unreal. I sat at my kitchen table with a hot cup of tea in my hands, but I couldn't feel its warmth. The house was quiet, except for the occasional rustle of wind outside. Liam was still asleep in the guest bedroom, finally getting the rest he deserved after such a terrifying day. But I couldn't sleep. I couldn't even sit still for long without my thoughts racing. I kept replaying everything, every conversation, every strange moment from the past year. Moments that didn't make sense at the time, but now felt like red flags I should have never ignored. Like the day Melissa brought over dinner and asked if I had updated my will lately. She smiled so sweetly as she helped me wash dishes, then said casually, just in case something happens. It's always good to be prepared, right? At the time, I didn't think much of it. But now those words chilled me. I remembered how, a few weeks later, she asked to borrow my laptop. Yours is so slow, Mom, she said. Let me help you order a new one. I'll even set up your bank app for you. I said yes. Why wouldn't I? She was my daughter. That was my mistake. And now I was seeing it all clearly. I reached for the stack of legal documents on the table, my property title, my bank account printouts, and the most recent copy of my will. My lawyer had helped me get them in order last night. He'd frozen all transactions connected to my name, but that wouldn't stop Melissa if she already had fraudulent documents ready. I had to know exactly how far she'd gone. I turned to my old filing cabinet, where I kept handwritten journals and personal records. I flipped through them one by one, finding the original version of my will from 5 years ago, signed by me in ink, witnessed, and sealed. Then I compared it to the one my lawyer had received via email last week. The email version had my signature, but something was off. It looked almost too perfect, too clean. The same way my daughter signed my birthday card last year. She hadn't just forged my name. She'd practiced. Around noon, Liam woke up and came into the kitchen. He looked exhausted but calm. "Hi, sweetheart," I said, pulling out a chair for him. "You feeling better?" He nodded, rubbing his eyes. "Are we still in danger?" I smiled gently, even though my heart was heavy. "We're safe for now, but we have to be very careful, okay? I need you to stay with someone for a few days." His eyes widened. "Are you going away?" "No," I said quickly. "But I need to do something, and I can't let anyone know where you are until it's done." He hesitated. "Can I stay with Uncle David?" David was my older son and Liam's biological father. Melissa had full custody after their divorce and had done everything in her power to push David away. She told everyone that he was unstable, that he didn't care about Liam. But the truth was, David had been trying to fight for shared custody for years, and Melissa made it impossible. "Yes," I said, a plan forming in my mind. "That's exactly where you'll go." That evening, I drove Liam to David's apartment on the other side of town. David hadn't seen his son in over 6 months. When he opened the door and saw Liam standing there with me, his face changed instantly, from confusion to shock to pure emotion. "Mom, what's going on?" "I'll explain everything," I said quickly. "But first, can he stay with you for a few days?" "It's urgent. I trust you." David didn't hesitate. He hugged Liam tightly and said, "Of course." When we sat down inside, I told him everything. Every word Melissa and Alex had said. What Liam had overheard. What I'd discovered about my forged documents and accounts. David listened in complete silence, his jaw tightening with every detail. Then he said something that shook me. "She asked me last year if I wanted to sign off on full adoption rights," he said. "Said it would be cleaner for the baby. That you were fine with it. She told me you said I was never around anyway." I stared at him in disbelief. "She lied to you," I said. "I know," he said bitterly. "But I couldn't prove anything. And if I pushed too hard, she threatened to take me to court for harassment." My heart broke all over again, not just for myself, but for David and for Liam. Melissa wasn't just trying to erase me. She was trying to erase everyone who didn't fit her plan. Over the next few days, I worked quietly with Mr. Farnsworth. We documented the fraudulent will and cross-checked the email address it came from. It was a dummy account with my name, hosted on a private server. My bank confirmed someone had tried to change my account credentials from a new device 2 weeks ago, flagged, but never followed up on. We also discovered a digital notary seal had been used on one of the documents. Melissa had forged that too. We gathered all the evidence and prepared it for legal action. But I didn't want to move too fast. If Melissa caught wind of this, she'd destroy anything that connected her to the crime. Or worse, she might try to finish what she started. I had to be smart. I decided to test her. I called her the next evening, keeping my voice cheerful. "Hey, sweetheart. Just wanted to thank you again for the baby shower. Sorry I left early. Liam wasn't feeling well." Her voice was tight. "Yeah, that was unexpected. I wanted to ask you something," I said, pretending to hesitate. "You remember those documents you helped me with last month? The insurance forms?" There was a short pause. "Yeah," she said carefully. "I can't find the final copy. Could you resend it to me?" Another pause. "Sure, Mom. I'll do that tonight." She hung up quickly. 10 minutes later, I got an email from her. The attachment was a PDF labeled final_insurance_form. But when I opened it, I realized something chilling. It wasn't an insurance form. It was a copy of my power of attorney, with Alex listed as the primary holder. My breath caught. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. I called Mr. Farnsworth and sent him the file. He confirmed it was a forged legal document. If I hadn't caught it in time, Alex could have used it to make financial and medical decisions on my behalf, even sell my home without my permission. The pieces all fit. Melissa and Alex were preparing to isolate me legally and financially, then remove me physically. And they were using Liam's growing independence as a deadline. He was starting to ask too many questions. They needed to act before he grew up enough to speak out. But they didn't expect him to act early. They didn't expect my sweet, quiet grandson to be the one who saved me. A few days later, I got a call from Melissa. Her voice was tense. "Hey, Mom. I've been thinking. Maybe you should move in with us for a while. Before the baby comes. We could set up a little room for you." I sat there in silence, stunned by her boldness. "That's kind of you," I said slowly. "But I don't want to be a burden." "Oh, come on. You've always said you wanted to be close to your granddaughter. This is your chance." I paused, then said something I knew would shake her. "Well, actually, I've been reviewing some documents with my lawyer lately. I think I might want to update some things, just in case something happens to me." Dead silence on the other end. Then Melissa said, "Oh? What kind of things?" I smiled to myself. "I'll let you know when it's all finalized." Then I hung up. That night, I sat in bed and thought about the girl I raised. How had she changed so much? Was it the money? The pressure of being a new mother? Or had I simply been blind for years, refusing to see what she was becoming? I didn't know. But one thing was clear now. Melissa was dangerous. She was willing to sacrifice anyone, even her own mother and her own son, to get what she wanted. And I wasn't going to let her win. It was strange waking up the next morning knowing my daughter, my own flesh and blood, was plotting against me. Most mothers worry about their children getting hurt. I never imagined I'd be the one protecting myself from mine. The days that followed felt like a balancing act. I had to move carefully. Melissa didn't know I had uncovered her lies. She still thought I was clueless, the sweet, aging mother who trusted her blindly. That was my advantage. But I knew I wouldn't have it for long. My lawyer, Mr. Farnsworth, and I built the case piece by piece. We had a forged digital will submitted through a spoofed email, a fraudulent power of attorney naming Alex, audio recordings of Melissa and Alex talking about getting rid of me, thanks to Liam's bravery, suspicious login attempts to my bank accounts traced to devices near Melissa's address, and the biggest red flag, her sudden, forced attempts to get me to move in with her before the baby arrived. We had everything, except one thing. A way to confront her that would trap her in her own game. Mr. Farnsworth said, "If you want justice, Gloria, it has to be more than a quiet lawsuit. You have to catch her trying to act. We need a smoking gun. Something undeniable." It was dangerous. But I agreed. We decided to set a trap. I called Melissa a few days later and told her I'd changed my mind. "You know what? Maybe I will stay with you until the baby's born," I said over the phone. "It'll be nice to help out." There was a pause. Then she said, "Really?" "Yeah," I lied sweetly. "You're right. Family should be together." She said they'd come pick me up that weekend. I told her I needed a few days to pack. But behind the scenes, we were planning something else entirely. We partnered with a private investigator who specialized in financial fraud and elder abuse. He was discreet, experienced, and more importantly, licensed to record conversations. I had cameras and audio recorders installed in my bag, my jewelry box, and even a small necklace I wore. Hidden. Secure. David, my son, was on standby. He had full custody of Liam now, thanks to emergency filings we submitted to the court using the evidence. Melissa hadn't been served yet. She had no idea Liam was gone for good. And that would be her breaking point. Saturday came. Melissa and Alex pulled up to my driveway, acting cheerful. Alex carried my small suitcase. Melissa kissed my cheek and said, "It'll be just like old times." I forced a smile. As we drove to their house, I glanced out the window, thinking of every moment I'd spent raising her. Every scraped knee I kissed, every bedtime story I read. It hurt. Deeply. But I couldn't let that pain stop me. Because this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Liam. The house was perfectly clean. Too clean. Like it had been prepared for something big. Melissa showed me to a guest room near the back door. The stairwell was right next to it. The same stairs she once joked about being dangerous for older knees. "I'll bring you tea in a bit," she said sweetly. I sat on the bed, heart pounding. I knew this was it. About an hour later, while I was reading, I heard them outside the door. They were whispering, but the recorder picked up every word. "Melissa, it has to be tonight. She's relaxed. She trusts us again. Alex, and the papers? Melissa, I put them with her things. After the fall, It'll look like she tripped, hit her head, and died instantly. I'll cry. Say I begged her not to climb the stairs. I'll even call 911 with you on speaker. Alex, what about Liam? He's not here. Melissa, no one will care. The story will hold. I wanted to cry, but I stayed still. They knocked on my door. Mom, tea's ready. I opened the door, acting cheerful. Oh, lovely. I needed a break. Melissa handed me a steaming mug. Chamomile. I know you like it. I looked down at the cup. And I knew. I could smell it, faint but there. Something bitter. I didn't drink it. Instead, I smiled, walked to the living room, and said, let's have a chat. All of us. They looked confused. Now? Alex asked. I nodded. Let's talk about the will. And the power of attorney you forged. Their faces changed instantly. Melissa blinked. What are you talking about? I set the cup down and calmly pulled out a flash drive. Everything you've done, every forged document, every audio recording, it's all here. And more copies are with my lawyer. Alex stood up. You can't prove anything. I already have. I reached into my purse and pressed a button on the small device inside. A light turned red, recording. You've just confirmed it again. Melissa's face drained of color. You set us up? She whispered. No, I said, standing tall. You set yourselves up. I just stopped playing dumb. They froze. And then, from the hallway, 2 plainclothes officers stepped into view. Melissa gasped. What is this? This, I said, is justice. They were arrested on the spot for attempted elder abuse, fraud, conspiracy, and forgery. Liam was granted full custody to David. Melissa lost all parental rights for endangering her child and attempting to harm a legal guardian. The media picked it up. The story went viral. Daughter plans to kill mother for inheritance. Stopped by 10-year-old boy. People called Liam a hero. And he was. A month later, I sat on a park bench with Liam. He was eating ice cream, swinging his legs happily. He looked up at me and said, Are you mad at Mommy? I paused, thinking. I'm sad, I said softly. But I'm proud of you. You saved me. You saved both of us. He nodded slowly. Do you think she'll ever say sorry? I didn't know what to say. I don't know, sweetheart. But even if she doesn't, we'll be okay. He smiled. And for the first time in weeks, so did I.